Happy Halloween. Ooh. Yes. So, y'all, I was counting votes till the last minute. Counting votes. Because y'all were so active on the voting today for our Halloween books. And some of y'all, hint hint mom, tried to stuff the ballot box. I saw that. I did. Okay, so with that in mind, these are actual real votes with actual, like, not stuffing ballot boxes. It's almost election time. We can't do that. So, in a vote of actual people, 8 actual different people voted for Trick or Treat South Carolina, and 7 actual, not the same people, voted for Arthur's Halloween. So, Trick or Treat South Carolina won by 1 vote. So, yay, which is pretty cool. I don't know. I was kind of hoping for Arthur's Halloween just because I haven't read an author book. I can't believe I've been doing this since March and haven't read a Arthur book yet. But I found a lot of them at the library. So I'm going to have some more Arthur books coming up soon. So don't worry. I got one specifically for Halloween. So today, our book for our Halloween Tuesday's Tales edition is Trick or Treat South Carolina, a Halloween adventure in the Palmetto State. And all my South Carolina people go whoop whoop. All right, by Eric James and Carl West. Trick or Treat South Carolina, written by Eric James and illustrated by Carl West. The full moon's out on Halloween, which it really will be. I looked it up. The full moon's out on Halloween. The sky is starry bright. High above South Carolina appears an eerie light. It darts behind the scattered clouds. It zips from town to town. It hovers over Greenville, then slowly heads on down. Hey, what about Walhalla? I hope we're in this book. Oh, here's some places that some of y'all have been. Spartanburg, Falls Park, Sassafras Mountain. We went there for Father's Day last year. It's the highest point in South Carolina. Very pretty. A ramp shoots out. A hatch appears. Smoke pours into the air. A chilling alien silhouette gives owls and wolves a scare. It steps out of the thick white fog. Its skin is neon green. This alien is, without a doubt, the cutest thing I've ever seen. Okay. All right. So, it has a map of South Carolina. Oh, let's see if we can name all the places. Okay. See how well I know my own state. Okay, we've got the State House and the lighthouse at Hilton Head, which I actually got to see recently with my friend. I don't know if this is supposed to be a theater somewhere in South Carolina. Maybe it's just a random one. I don't know. Rock Hill, Charleston, or Myrtle Beach. There's just so much to do. And what about Lake Murray? But first, a trip to Riverbank Zoo. It's so cool when there's a book about your own state because you're like, I've been there and there and there. He pulls out his transporter and waves it in the air. Now, in the spot where he just stood, there is nobody there. He pops up in Columbia and wanders all around, making sure that he checks off each landmark that he's found. Okay, so apparently the top 5 tourist spots are Riverbank Zoo and Garden. Been there. Very pretty zoo. Very, very nice zoo. They have flamingos and penguins. South Carolina State House in Columbia. Been there. The Children's Museum of the Upstate in Greenville. Been there too. The Sky Wheel in Myrtle Beach. Haven't rode it, but I have seen it. Fort Sumter, Charleston Harbor. I think I've been there. I only went to Charleston one time, and I was in like high school, so I don't remember. He zaps over to Hilton Head to take a little look, snapping selfies as he goes and posting them to Spacebook. But where is everybody? Are they staying in tonight? He climbs up high to take a peek and gets a nasty fright. For all around this spooky town, the streets are jammed and heaving. Monsters! Monsters everywhere! It's time that he was leaving. I better run, the alien says. I'm not a big brave hero. Oh no, my gizmo doesn't work. The battery gauge reads 0. They're closing in. There's no escape. He scrunches up his eyes. The monsters all around surround him, but he gets a big surprise. Hey, high five, dude, a vampire shouts. Great costume, shrieks a ghoul. A little ghost tugs at his arm and says, I think you're cool. So you don't want to eat me then? The little alien asks. They laugh until they're so red-faced they must take off their mask. Clearly this is a pre-corona book. Sweet antenna, smiles the ghost while giving them a flick. The children shriek. What happens next is just the coolest trick. The jack-o'-lanterns all take off and float into the sky. Oh, wow, they gasp. It looks like you're a real-life alien guy. What? The children dance excitedly. They shout, can you do more? The alien shows them lots of tricks as they go door to door. The antics impress everyone, which comes in really handy, because it means before too long their bags are filled with candy. It's getting late. I better go, the alien says at last. I promise I'll come back next year. South Carolina's such a blast. So let's see. There's the State House at Fort Sumter and the zoo in Hilton Head. And Falls Park, where his ship is. And the Children's Museum. They take him to see his spaceship and say their sad goodbyes. They wait for him to start it up and zoom into the skies. Aw, he has a little thing. A little bumper sticker says, I heart South Carolina. But something isn't right because it makes the weirdest sound. The witch points underneath and says, what is that on the ground? Uh-oh. So it's making noises, it looks like. Apparently, uh-oh. That actually happened with, like, maybe he has a dead battery. That sounds like dead battery sounds. His spaceship has a fuel leak. There's thick goo everywhere. Ah, shucks, he says. It looks like I'm not going anywhere. Oh dear. The werewolf hands out bubble gum and shouts, "Come on, guys, chew! We'll stretch the gum across the hole and stick it down like glue." Sweet! We'll fill the tank with candy. We've got buckets of the stuff. Throw it in up to the brim. That should be just enough. So his spaceship runs on candy? That's magical. The spaceship is now ready. The alien turns the key. The engine roars, the spaceship soars and zooms off with a whee! But now it's diving back to Earth. The children shake with fear. Ah, he's just flying past to wave and say, "See you next year." Happy Halloween, South Carolina. The end. Well, that's fun. That was a fun book. Cool. Thank y'all for joining us for that book. And now it is time for our Bible story. All right. Our Bible story today is about Moses. It's titled God to the Rescue. So last week we talked about Joseph and all his 12 brothers and how they lived in Egypt. So today we're talking about what happens next. And you can find that in the Grown-Up Bible in Exodus 3 through 13. Joseph and his brothers grew old and died, but their children's children stayed on in Egypt, where they became a very large family. Later on, a new king began to rule. But this Pharaoh didn't remember Joseph, and he didn't like God's people. He made them into his slaves and beat them and made them work harder and harder. God's people cried out to God to rescue them, and God heard them. He remembered his promise to Abraham. He would look after his people. He would find a way to set them free. One day, Moses was looking after sheep when something caught his eye. A bush. It was behaving very oddly. It was flickering with flames, but its leaves weren't burning up. He took a closer look. "Moses!" boomed a big voice. Moses leapt back. The bush was talking to him. "I have heard my people's cries," God said. "I have seen their tears. So I have come down to rescue them. Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go free." Moses was afraid, but God said, "I will be with you." So Moses went to Pharaoh. "Pharaoh," Moses began. "God says—" "God?" Pharaoh said. "Never heard of him." Moses kept going. "God says, let his people go." "Why should I?" Pharaoh said. "Don't want to. Won't." So he didn't. So God gave Pharaoh 10 warnings called plagues. First, God turned the river Nile into blood. No one could drink the water, but still Pharaoh would not let them go. So God made frogs come hopping and leaping and jumping. In your bed frogs, in your hair frogs, in your soup frogs, all over everywhere frogs. "Make them go away," Pharaoh screamed. "Then your people can go." So God took the frogs away. But Pharaoh changed his mind. "You can't go," he said. Then God sent zillions of gnats. But still Pharaoh said, "No." So then God sent swarms of flies. Flies buzzing in your eyes, flies. And after that, sickness and horrible boils and huge hailstones and a storm of locusts and then darkness when it should have been day, until it seemed the whole world, creation and everything, was coming undone, falling back into darkness and emptiness and nothingness. But each time, Pharaoh said, "Make it stop, and then I'll let them go." And each time when God made it stop, Pharaoh changed his mind and said, "Actually, no, you can't go." Finally, Moses warned Pharaoh, "Obey God. or he will have to send the worst thing of all." Pharaoh just laughed. So God said, "The oldest boy in each family of Egypt must die, but my people will be safe." God told his people to take their best lamb, to kill it, and to put some of its blood on the front door. "When God passes over your house," Moses explained, "God will see the blood and know that the lamb died instead of you." That night, just as God had said, it happened as he said. Suddenly, piercing the darkness, echoing down the corridors of the palace, came a blood-curdling scream. Pharaoh's oldest son had died. At last, Pharaoh did just what God said. "Get out!" Pharaoh shouted. "Just go!" And so that very night, Moses and God's people fled out of Egypt and out of slavery. They were free at last. God's people would always remember this great rescue and call it Passover. But an even greater rescue was coming. Many years later, God was going to do it again. He was going to come down once more to rescue his people. But this time, God was going to set them free forever and ever. With Jesus. That's a spoiler alert. The end. So thank you for joining us next week. This week. Thank you for joining us this week. Next week is election day, and I know a lot of people know that, and I know a lot of y'all are going, ugh. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the experience a bit more entertaining with a small break. And that small break will include a choice between a cat book and another cat book. So, next week we have Around America to Win the Vote, Two Suffragists, a Kitten, and 10,000 Miles. Or If I Had Your Vote by The Cat in the Hat. So, which cat book will win? Vote in the comments below, or vote in my story next week, and I'll be excited to see which one wins. Either way, you get a cat book, and it's going to be great. So, take a break from all your election night panic next week, and tune in, and I will see you then. Thanks for joining us. Bye!